back to my channel. So today I'm going to talk about a skirt that I made. I received the fabric as a Lamazi maker from Liana and James. They own Lamazi Fabrics. And love her store. I've already talked about her before, and her, I guess her husband, but I've already talked about Liana before. I talk to her all the time on Instagram. I order from her all the time. I get free fabric to make one thing, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. But every time I get something free, I order like 20 more things that I pay for because her fabric is so fantastic. She has a really strong viewpoint about having only fabrics that are good quality, and if the quality lacks, she kind of phases them out and gets new things. So I feel like when I order from her, even if I haven't heard of the brand, like I had never, oh, here's my kitty. I had never ordered any Mind the Maker fabrics, but I was like, well, they must be good because she got a ton in. They look really nice, and they really were so nice. So the polka dots that I used for this make were, I think she has probably about 10 colorways, but I'll have to double check. But a lot of colorways in the polka dots, and then a bunch of other styles as well. First, let me show you some pictures because they'll be a lot better than what you'll see in the video, and then I will stand up and show you everything about the skirt. Here are the polka dots, if you can see them. Okay, so a couple of things about this skirt. I decided on the Ready to Sew Justine skirt pattern, which is a free pattern. I've made it before, love it. It's super versatile, like the buttons down the front, and then the gathering, and then the fact that it's like a midi length, and of course you could change the length however you want, is perfect. When I've made it before, I've included the patch pockets in the front that are supposed to be there. There's that comes with the pattern. For this fabric, since it's a little bit, well, it's a lot drapey, I decided I didn't want patch pockets because unless I interface them with this fabric, they would just, instead of being squares, they would just kind of be like, you know, they would just kind of like flop open, or the shape would be a little bit floppy. So I was like, but I definitely still want pockets, because who in their right mind would want a skirt without pockets? Not me. So I was like, well, why don't I do inseam pockets? Well, as easy as it might sound, like I've literally never done that before. I mean, I've done inseam pockets when it came with the pattern, but I've never changed the pocket to an inseam pocket and like used my own pattern piece and like added it on my own accord. And so I was like, oh, I mean, this is probably going to be easy, but I'm still a little bit afraid. So the first thing I did was I went on, I just Googled inseam pocket pattern piece. I found one that was shaped, it was like really wide, but it wasn't very long, and I tend to like kind of long pockets. So I cut it out, and then I was going to use it, and I was like, I don't really like the shape. So I found another one. I'll pop a link down below. But basically, super easy. I made sure I printed it out the correct size by measuring the little square, and making sure it was the right scale. But anyway, it just shaped like this. It's just, you know, kind of long, and it has a little like lip right here that is good for like your seam allowance, basically, because you don't really want the pocket to start forming and having a shape until until after the seam allowance. So this was pretty good. So basically I cut out 4, You can use a lining fabric if you want, but I just used the polka dot fabric. I figured it's fine. I want it to be the same consistency or the same type of fabric. So I printed that out. And then I cut four, two mirror images, two sets of mirror images. And then basically I go through this in my blog post completely, but I will give you a little bit of a rundown just verbally, but it's very, very easy. You will have a back skirt piece that's cut on the fold for the pattern, and then you will have two front pieces that are two separate pieces because they will eventually be attached at the front with a button placket. So you're gonna have three skirt pieces. And so basically with right sides together, I placed, let's pretend this is my fabric, okay? With right sides together, I placed this pocket piece on the side seams of the back skirt piece and the front skirt pieces. So I had two on the back skirt piece, and then I had one on one skirt front piece and one on one skirt front piece for the other side. And in order to leave room for the seam allowance that would eventually be used to attach my waistband, I put the pocket, because I didn't want that to, like, I didn't want to sew the pocket even with the very top of the skirt, because then, like, whenever I attach my waistband, it would, like, fold over the pocket, and I just didn't want to deal with that. So I basically put this about an inch down below the top of the skirt, and then I just put it flush with the side seam, sewed it on a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance basically, and then I folded the seam allowance and the pocket away from the skirt, and I pressed that, understitched the seam allowance to the pocket so then the pocket doesn't pop out as easily. It's a little bit more stable. Then we're getting to the part that is super easy. Basically, you are now going to proceed with the pattern as is. The only thing is when you're sewing the side seams, basically when you're attaching the back of the skirt to the front of the skirt pieces, you will normally just attach side seams. Like if there's no inseam pockets, you're just sewing down the side seam. Well, you're going to have a pocket there. So you're going to leave the pocket pieces like out, like it's going to be like your side seams coming down here, then you have your pocket, and you keep going down. And you are going to sew down the side seam, sew into the pocket just a little bit, sew all the way around, attaching both pocket pieces because they're right sides together. The pocket piece on the front and the pocket piece on the back are touching now, and they should be lining up. And you're going to be sewing up to here, and basically I stop about here, pivot my needle, and sew the rest of the side seam down. And so you are basically leaving you're not going all the way, you're just going down about here. And then when you turn everything outside to the right side out, you will be able to tuck your pockets in and they'll look perfect. This is all explained very well on my blog, and I will leave a link to that down below. The only thing I forgot to say was before I started anything, right after I cut my pocket pieces out, I serged around all the edges or finished them. You can finish them however you want, just to make sure they're not going to fray and they'll look nice on the inside. So I serged around every single edge, so that way when I'm attaching everything, it's protected and I don't need to worry about finishing it later, because it would be a little bit difficult to finish the seams afterwards. You want to be able to press the seam open underneath. Also, in order to press the seam open underneath your pocket on your side seam, you will need to clip into the seam there so that the pocket can move freely and the side seam can be pressed open underneath your pocket. Also, I wanted my pockets to kind of stay towards the front, not like flop around underneath. So I pressed the entire pocket towards the front of the skirt. Then on the outside of the skirt, I stitched down the seam allowance and the pocket until, you know, about that part of the pocket, maybe like a couple inches down, and that kind of keeps it in place. So that seems like a lot, but it's really easy. The blog explains it very, very, very well. And that's all for that. The other tips I wanted to include were you have to interface the button placket. And what I did, instead of like measuring the length of interfacing and width that I needed, it's much easier for me to just draft a pattern piece for interfacing. So I went on the pattern, I traced out a pattern piece for the interfacing, and then I used that pattern piece to cut it out on my interfacing, and then I put my interfacing on my skirt. Easy, easy, easy. And I put that in the blog as well. The major issue I had with this pattern, and like I said, I've made this pattern before, but I made it in like a cotton poplin, a very stable fabric, you know, totally different than this fabric. It's fine to make it in this fabric, and it would have been perfect if the fabric didn't have a tiny bit of stretch. Because the fabric has a little bit of stretch that I didn't really notice. I noticed it a little bit, but I didn't really take into account how much it was going to affect my skirt. And I also thought it was a little funny that you don't interface the waistband, because you normally do, but I didn't do that last time and it worked out fine. And I didn't really think anything of it. But all this to say, if I had noticed that my fabric had a little bit of stretch, and I had realized that was going to affect the fit in the waist, then I would have interfaced my waistband, and I might have interfaced it with an interfacing that does stretch a little bit, because sometimes if you use interfacing that doesn't stretch with fabric that does stretch, if it stretches a lot more than the interfacing, I found that my interfacing will just rip. Like, it'll just rip in half to let the fabric stretch. So I would have to test that out. But all this to say, it needs more stabilization in order to fit properly for this fabric, because I had a little bit of stretch. So keep that in mind. And let me show you what I did. It's not perfect, but in order to prevent this skirt from like reaching the trash can or being scrap fabric, I had to just make do. I still love it completely, and I'm still going to wear it all the time because now it fits me, but it's not perfect. So I just wanted to show you how things don't work out sometimes. Nothing to do with the fabric. The fabric behaved how it was supposed to. I just didn't pay attention to it. So basically, what I did is I am supposed to be buttoning this right, okay, hang on one second, right here, okay? Okay, like, it's so much room, okay? So I had moved the button over here initially, and I was like, okay, it's okay, because you can't really tell, like, it's such drapey fabric that it doesn't really matter. Well, it is still really big, and I think it's just stretching more and more and more. I honestly might apply, like, I might just sew a ribbon that will just look like top stitching on the outside to the inside of the waistband, just so it can be stable. I'll probably wash and dry the fabric again, and to kind of shrink it to the smallest it can be, and then I will probably add like some kind of stabilization, be a ribbon or whatever. I'm pretty sure I'm going to do that because I think it keeps stretching more and more. Anyway, so the initial movement of the button didn't really help, so I added another one like way over here. Okay, so here it is. Okay, so because this fabric is so forgiving, and the skirt can, you know, wrinkle up and be kind of pushed aside and you can't really tell, it's fine. The only problem is now the buttons are not in the center. Like, I've basically taken this side and moved it way over, and so there's no way for my buttons to be in the center, which, you know, that's fine. I can just turn the skirt a little bit and make them be in the center, but then my pockets are not lined up correctly. So I'm fine with it being on the side. I have skirts that have buttons down the side like this, and it looks totally fine to me. And then I have my two pockets here. Now, if I put the buttons in the center, then I would have one pocket right here and one way back here. So you see why I have to do this. Anyway, I still love the skirt. I'm still going to wear it. It's fine. It's not perfect. I have a lot of things in my wardrobe that aren't perfect, But like I said, I think one day I can just add that little ribbon or something stable underneath, and then it won't stretch as much and I won't have to keep moving the button over and over and over. So anyway, so not perfect, but I may do with it. And next time I make the skirt, I'm going to interface the waistband and we will be fine. The rest of the skirt, I don't think, it doesn't matter if it stretches or not. It's all loose and gathered, and I mean, who cares if it gives me more room in my hips. I mean, it's got a ton of room in my hips anyway. The only fitted part in this skirt is the waist for me. I definitely made a size that has more than enough room for my hips, but if you're making a size that's kind of borderline for your hips, then if the material stretches, then you'll be even happier. So it really, if you want a size down with this fabric, that would be fine. Other than that, that's pretty much it. I loved working this fabric. The fabric just like moved how I wanted it to move. It wasn't super slippery. It was really easy to sew with. Yeah, it pretty much behaved like it was supposed to. I just didn't notice that it stretches. So I did not use a stretch needle though. It didn't skip stitches or anything. So it's not that stretchy. It's not really a knit fabric. So anyways, you'll have to excuse my dog. He's like running around. I have no idea what's wrong with him. Anyway, all right, so there's my hubby. Anyways, thanks for watching. Leave me a comment down below if you want to ask me anything or if anything you want to say or add. I usually always write back. Hit the subscribe button down below if you really like the video, and hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I have another video. I really enjoyed making this one. I have plenty more to come. I have a fabric haul from Lamazi Fabrics that I might do, even though I've already put all the fabric away, but I'll probably just get it out and show you. And I love Leona and James, and I am so happy to be working with them. It's such a joy. Anyway, see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye. Hello everyone. Welcome back again to my... I'm out of practice. I'm out of practice.